Even when it comes to the most corporate, focus-tested blockbuster releases, it would be wrong to say that all video games aren't crafted from the blood, sweat and tears of dedicated developers. So with that in mind, you can imagine the frustration that comes then if something goes terribly wrong once launch day arrives. The annoyance after working on a game for so long, only for all that hard work to come tumbling down, at least initially, thanks to a tiny issue that takes on a life of its own. Maybe it's a small problem that unassumingly takes down the larger whole, or one which is blown up by fans and the media and subsequently overshadows the rest of the game. But either way, a tiny issue can completely ruin the launch of a major title. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 tiny issues that ruined blockbuster video game launches. Number 8. Too many players break the servers. DRIVECLUB. While the company has moved on from it now, for a time Sony was defined by DRIVECLUB's failure early on in the PS4's life cycle. One of the first titles revealed for the next-gen system, the racing game was going to complement Gran Turismo by embracing online connectivity and crafting an experience where you were never on the tracks alone. Even more tantalizing, the game was set to be a major push for PlayStation Plus, with a free version launching alongside the regular edition for subscribers. Now, a racing game entirely designed around online connectivity needs to have, an online infrastructure that can support all of its players. That should always be priority numero uno. Sadly, while Sony tried to make this area as watertight as possible, one tiny detail slipped through the cracks which broke the entire game at launch. As soon as DRIVECLUB released, it was clear that its servers weren't up to snuff, with players being unable to go online for weeks afterwards. In response, Sony postponed the PlayStation Plus edition and tried to figure out just what the hell went wrong. It turned out that this disarray was caused by the servers being unable to handle so many people at the same time. Later, an executive would describe the issue as a, quote, oversight, which seemed like an understatement at the time, that led to the developers having to rip the entire system out and rebuild it from scratch. Number 7. An old cowboy hat ruins the story. Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is now considered the best Fallout game since Bethesda rebooted the franchise, but at launch fans didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot rad roach pole. That was partly because it came after the beloved Fallout 3 and was from a different developer no less, and partly because it was riddled with a whole host of visual bugs. In fact, for many people, one of the very first things they saw in the game was a nightmare-inducing bug that let them know they were in for a messy experience. After being saved from a case of being shot in the head by a local doctor, you wake up to find him sitting next to your bed as you go through a few questions and build your character. The thing is, sometimes his head had a life of its own, as if this was some kind of unofficial Exorcist sequel. That, of course, nabbed headlines, but the thing that totally killed the launch was an otherwise unassuming cowboy hat. A bunch of players encountered a hard crash when entering the New Vegas Strip, where the bulk of the story missions are given, which would happen over and over again with no apparent cause. However, it turned out that the only way around the game-breaking bug was to wear a specific old cowboy hat when entering the Strip, and if you weren't, you simply couldn't progress. However, my theory is the game just wanted you to be stylish while you were roaming the wastes, and that shouldn't be criticized. Number 6. Character faces wouldn't load. Assassin's Creed Unity. Even though it came at the height of the franchise's oversaturation, Assassin's Creed Unity was still built on grand ambitions. The goal was to create the most lifelike populated cities the series had ever seen, with even deeper stealth mechanics and a story that brought the era of the French Revolution to life. Arguably, Ubisoft's title achieved all of those goals as well, but you probably only remember it for one thing: those terrifying character models that are all eyes and teeth and no skin. You thought New Vegas' dock was bad? Well, after Unity, your worst sleep paralysis nightmares had a new face. Or I guess, a lack of a face. When Unity launched, it perhaps rightly became a laughingstock for being emblematic of the industry's approach to blockbuster releases. At the time, it seemed like every publisher had moved to a ship-first, patch-later mentality that was resulting in broken games at launch, and Assassin's Creed, with its melted faces, was the poster child for that. And that is a shame, because while the game was full of bugs and glitches, Ubisoft did patch them out, and the title that was left was a genuinely interesting, ambitious game that simply crumbled under its own creativity. Now though, it's only remembered as the sequel, which temporarily killed a franchise. Number 5. you had to queue to launch the game, The Division. As a result of what might be the greatest oversight in video game history, The Division was brought to a standstill literally on launch day because the devs completely messed up how players activated the opening mission. The Blockbuster was one of the first of its kind, an attempt to blend MMO-style interactivity with the depth and gameplay style of a regular third-person shooter, an ambitious feat which, for the most part anyway, the devs absolutely pulled off. What they couldn't nail though was figuring out how to fit a bunch of players into a room and let them start the tutorial mission. When it launched, players could only talk to the first quest giver one at a time, which led to a bunch of avatars stood around with nothing to do. With so many people buying the game, there were hundreds of people attempting to access this opening mission in each server, and they had to do it in single file. Taking a page out the British Book of Etiquette, players then decided to form an orderly queue and wait their turn to talk to the NPC, which, in fairness, probably shows that humans aren't entirely terrible. Number 4. Face scanning turned everyone into a monster. NBA 2K15. For the most part, NBA 2K has been the premier basketball franchise, where EA's take on the sport has failed to catch on, which is a strange anomaly considering how the publisher dominates every other virtual video game sport. 2K's offering has always reigned supreme, but not without a couple of hiccups along the way. While insidious monetization practices haunted later titles, a far more humorous issue plagued the 2015 edition of the series. Here, just like in a bunch of games before it, players could scan their own face into the title to create their own custom player with their own likeness. But the results range from, putting it politely, unflattering to genuine inhuman abominations, and oh my god, what is going on here? While players could find the fun in the broken feature, its hideous results undeniably took the spotlight away from the actual game, and even led to the worry that facial recognition software was a security breach, and that people's likenesses could be exploited. This even led to a lawsuit which was eventually thrown out, that kinda sucked the fun out of all the funny results. Number 3, a save bug punished you for playing, Skyrim. For all intents and purposes, the PS3 version of Skyrim went totally tits up. While all Bethesda titles have a certain level of roughness to them at launch, with bugs and glitches being par for the course, the edition the studio shipped for Sony's console absolutely took the biscuit. It was categorically an inferior version of the product, and the devs failed to promptly get around to fixing any of the issues, leaving players to ponder whether or not they backed the wrong horse by choosing the supposedly more powerful PS3 over the Xbox 360. However, Skyrim PS3 could have avoided a tarnished reputation had the glitches not completely broken the game. Back then, fans let Bethesda get away with shipping messy games and persevered in spite of them. Sadly though, here there was one glitch, exclusive to the PlayStation Edition, that broke the camel's back. The longer you played Skyrim on PS3, the worse the experience got, as lag would progressively get worse and worse and worse, to the point where it was completely unplayable. This glitch apparently happened once your save file exceeded 5 megabytes, and while a reset would temporarily pause the lag, it would always return with a vengeance further down the line. There was no workaround for this either, and instead players were punished for pushing through all the other crap and actually trying to enjoy the game. Number 2, a never-ending tutorial, GTA Online. It's morphed into one of the biggest success stories of the entire generation now, which is saying something considering it didn't even originally launch on this generation of consoles, but for a time GTA Online could have been a huge disaster. In fact, when it launched a few weeks after the main game, one absolutely infuriating glitch made a bunch of people swear it off entirely until Rockstar implemented a fix. That's because GTA Online attempted to blend the cinematic storytelling of the main game with your regular multiplayer offerings. And after creating your character, you were ushered into an opening tutorial mission establishing how online quests and lobbies worked in this unique sandbox. The issue was that just about every player, bar a few lucky ones who escaped this purgatory, got stuck in a never-ending tutorial loop, where they'd be called in to do this one mission over and over again. Players were unable to progress and were unable to actually get into the game proper, leaving thousands infuriated that they couldn't play the mode a huge chunk of the fanbase was looking forward to the most. There were other issues that plagued GTA Online at launch as well, of course, including a lack of content and matchmaking issues, but what defined its early life was the idea that it was kind of inherently broken. Number 1. A fail-state bricked PS4's Anthem. Anthem's launch didn't have to go the way it did. There were plenty of problems, of course, from a lack of interesting loot to that damn Tomb of the Legionnaire's quest, but not enough to kill it completely. After all, similar shooters like Destiny and The Division, as mentioned, survived rocky launches to build something special, and there was the hope that Anthem could also pull the ship around. However, what definitively made the shooter's release a total failure was the report that the title was actively bricking PS4s in a way that only a database rebuild could fix. Many players discovered a glitch that would power off their console when booting up Anthem and being killed, and for a time there was the worry that it might have broken the entire machine. Even when it turned out that this problem might have been a little overblown and only impacted a small percentage of players though, the narrative was already written, and it read, "Anthem is so bad, it's breaking your console." And that's just a reputation you can't shake. So that's our list. Want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Were you there at the launch of these games? And did you encounter these same infuriating problems? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.